Hi, I'm Matt Meuleners from Focus Training. I want to talk a little bit about how, as leaders, we can function more effectively in the modern gig economy. Even pre-pandemic, the use of contract and temporary labor was on the rise. With more than 1 in 5 U.S. jobs actually being contract labor, a lot of us as managers and leaders are starting to find ourselves in a position leading a team of people that includes temporary or contract workers alongside our permanent full-time employees. Or you may find yourself sitting on a team working collaboratively with an outside third-party contractor or a temporary employee. How we lead in this environment matters. And the good news is much of what's expected or much of what we need to do as leaders with contract workers is the same as what we should be doing with permanent employees and colleagues. We need to have clearly defined expectations. For a permanent employee, that looks like a job description and is probably reinforced over time by an effective leader in performance conversations. For a contract employee, that might look like a slightly different document, a scope of work that lays out the work and the role of this contract worker and how their success will be measured. If a document like that doesn't exist, you may need to go the extra mile as a manager or leader to help create that. But it's not a radically dissimilar approach to what you would use with permanent employees. We also, just like permanent employees, need clearly defined performance metrics and ways as a leader to hold folks on our team accountable for the work that they're doing. Again, this is nothing different, but we may need some different communication channels or maybe more regular communication with a contract employee than we would somebody who's been around for a long time or that we have an established relationship with. So in many ways, leading a contract employee might feel a little more like leading a new employee. They just may come with a whole lot more experience or skill set. Strong communication is critical. I do want to talk, though, about 3 key differences that we experience with contract labor. First, contractors fundamentally view this relationship differently. Now, some contract employees are in this role because they hope that it will become a permanent role, and so that's a little different. For those folks, the motivation of career growth and landing a permanent role may be a part of the toolkit you have accessible to you as a leader to motivate and influence those folks. But if I'm a contractor who's chosen independent contract work intentionally because it's what I want, because I enjoy the freedom and flexibility it provides for me, or I like defining my own work culture, setting my own hours, those kinds of things, then dangling the carrots of career growth or professional development opportunities, or even trying to motivate me by the hope that our company will succeed better in the future, it's not that I'm not interested in any of those things, but you probably need to reframe them for me as someone who is a third party in this situation. If you're my customer, you can motivate me often by talking about how this or that effort will strengthen the relationship that we have between our two organizations, or the possibility of growth of the relationship between our companies, right? Future work that might be available to us. So in those ways, we can reframe the same motivators for a contractor who perceives himself as truly independent. Speaking of, many contractors also have other clients at the same time. So while they may be working on a project with you, they may also be managing 2 or 3 other projects with different clients. And you may find yourself as a manager having to discuss shifting priorities, maybe putting your foot down at times when your work is urgent or is coming up on deadlines, or maybe giving a contractor some flexibility to manage the commitments they've set with other organizations at the same time. Fundamentally, you need to make sure you're getting what you pay for. And so if you're in a relationship with a contractor who's not meeting your expectations because they've taken on too much other work, you may need to have that conversation as well. Sometimes the challenge is relational and cultural. So for many of us, we will be working on a team that includes permanent employees as well as contractors. And when the contractors are attached to a perception of temporary, It can cause permanent members of the team or the contractors themselves to hesitate from investing in relationship building. Why am I going to bother to get to know this person? They're only going to be here for 6 months. Once the project's over, I'm done with them. Which is disappointing because it holds back the team from establishing deeper trust and more effective work relationships. As a leader, you may be called upon to invest a little extra in those relationship building activities, to nudge folks into that effort early in a project so that we can get to know this contractor and how they operate, and they can get to know us and our team culture. That understanding can mitigate a lot of conflict and a lot of rework and wasted effort. Again, fundamentally, these relationships are very similar to the relationships that leaders should have with their colleagues and other employees that are in the organization on a permanent basis. But the differences often are those of reframing. It's a different perspective, a different time frame sometimes, different documents used to keep track and measure what's going on. But like all leadership, at least influence leadership, this is about working with other people, treating them as human beings, managing their work effectively, and motivating them to do the best work that they can. And strong influence leaders will do that with contract employees as well as the permanent members of their team.